Hi, Victoria. How are you? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yep, I am on mute. Hi, how are
Perfect.
you? Nice to see you.
You too. I'm very excited. You're the first panelist to kick off our Wellness Week. So I think we can just get started and jump right in with like some quick intros. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Camille. I am a marketing lead at Fit Biomics. Um, really excited to kick off this week. And Victoria, really excited to learn more about meditation and mindfulness and stillness. And would love just like a quick intro of yourself, and then we can get started.
Sure. Well, I'm Victoria Greene. I'm a meditation teacher, a yoga teacher, and retreat leader. And yeah, today I'm just hoping to introduce a couple of very simple techniques for us to incorporate meditation and also just breathing and taking time out for ourselves in a very, very easy way and an accessible way. So I teach here in New York City. And we need a little time out sometimes. So that's what I'm hoping to introduce to everybody once we're ready to get going.
Yes, I love this. I think it's perfect, especially being in New York City, working the corporate grind. We need just like a moment to just reset. And I think this is like a great opportunity and great timing as well. So super excited to get started. And then we'll leave about 5 minutes towards the end of the session for any just general questions for everyone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So take away.
Okay. So I think the most important thing to say anytime about meditation and mindfulness is that it doesn't have to be complicated. What we struggle with often is thinking that we have to know exactly how to go about adding meditation to our day, or it seems to have to be something that is a big undertaking. And the problem with that is it starts to feel like just another thing to do. And if we already have busy lives, busy schedules, to add to that is not necessarily the state of mind that we're aiming to achieve. So it can really be simple. And that would be the first thing that I might encourage anybody that I work with in meditation is to realize it doesn't have to be difficult. It's not complicated. And it's not going to cause you to just have more to do in your day. So we want to take away the idea that it's a chore or it's something that you must do. This is something that you would be doing for yourself. You can think of it as a self-care tool in your toolbox, a little bit of support to other wellness practices that you might undertake. And honestly, if you don't have wellness practices in your day, this is a really simple way to get started. I often think that, yes, we can take meditation practice any time of day, and that is true. But there might be a certain time in your day that is just naturally a little quieter. Perhaps for you, it is first thing in the morning when you first wake up, or what might be more likely for many of us is later in the evening. There's a little window of time, and I'm talking maybe 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, where you can just take yourself to a room in your apartment or your home, sit in the garden if you have one, and just take that time for yourself. And that's the very beginning of it, knowing that you can do that without distraction. So if you live with people, you might tell them that you're going to take 5 minutes. Encourage them gently to give you that 5 minutes without interruption. And if you have a room to go to where you can close the door and turn your cell phone down, turn off the TV, the things that you can control in your environment that you can manage in terms of turning them off, that's a great start too. Sitting comfortably is a great idea. And I always suggest that rather than lying down. If you're tired, lying down will lead you towards falling asleep, which is also great. But if we're trying to add a little bit of meditation to our day, sitting upright can be really, really helpful. So, right now, if you are in a place where you can sit with your feet on the floor with a nice straight spine, that's great. If you're walking around as you tune into this, you can do this practice, or at least the first part of it, walking too. Just be sure of your environment and that you're able to pay attention to the things you need to pay attention to. Okay. So, the very first thing I'd like us to do is just to work with a very simple breathing practice. And this is a count 1 to 5. If English is not your first language, then count in the language that is most natural to you so that you're not thinking about it. There's no hesitation. And actually, you can start to find your flow of this in a very simple and easy way. And so the pattern is just to do this. So I'll tell you it first, and then we'll practice it together for just a few minutes. You start at 1, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then count down 4, 3, 2, 1, back up 2, 3, 4, 5, and back down 4, 3, 2, 1. And we add to that the flow of our breathing. So we would breathe in for the count up to 5, and we'd breathe out through the count down to 1. If the 5-second count feels a little bit long for you, and we'll practice it together in a moment, it can be 4, it can be 3. You're not trying to agitate yourself in any way. So if you start to feel like you're gasping for breath, or if your heart rate starts to increase, it might be that you're just extending that breath a little too far. So if you're ready, we can do this part together. I'm going to close my eyes, and those of you that might be in a quiet place, maybe at home, if you're comfortable to close your eyes, you could do that too. Otherwise, let your eyes just draw down towards the floor, lowering your eyelids slightly so that you can feel like you're not taking in as much visual distraction. If you're out and about and you're walking, you might do the same thing. Just lower your eyes a little bit so that you can see where you're going, but that you're not overly stimulated by what might be around you. Okay? If it feels right, you can place your left hand on your sternum with your fingers and thumbs quite spread out, and your right hand like a little plate just right in front of your navel. So let's close our eyes if that's what we're able to do, and just pause for a few seconds. Feel relaxed in yourself, nice and comfortable. If your feet are on the ground, your heels and your toes are relaxed on the ground too. There's a nice flexion at your knees, at your hips, and your spine is as straight as you can be. And if that means putting a pillow behind your back or leaning back against the chair or a wall, all those things are okay. Your hands on your body in this way, it can feel quite comforting. So you might allow that feeling to arise, of feeling quite secure. You feel your belly expanding and contracting underneath that right hand. You can try and relax the flesh and the softness there in the belly. And underneath your left hand, the chest rises and falls. You might feel that pulse, your heartbeat right there underneath your left hand. And you just start to settle into a natural rhythm. If you can breathe in and out through your nose, in some cases that's really helpful. But again, if that causes stress in any way, it's okay just to breathe through your mouth, of course. The idea is to find the opposite of stress, and that is to feel easy and comfortable. And so as you begin to settle in here, we can start that technique of counting up and counting down. I'll vocalize it with you for a few moments and then leave a little bit of silence for you to continue on your own. So let's start with an exhalation, exhaling your air out. We begin with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Continuing in that way for yourself just for a few short moments. Just a few more of those counts up and counts down. And finishing this short exercise on your exhalation, back down to 1. And then taking your hands into your lap, pausing for a moment. Usually what happens when we use that breath, and you can see how simple it is, and it can really be used at any time. If you do 10 to 15 repetitions, what starts to happen is this groove is kind of created in your mind, because we really can count 1 to 5 quite easily, right? We don't have to think very much about it. So it allows the mind to just have enough to do to stay focused, but not so much to do that we become overwhelmed and want to stop. And so the rhythm is based on our breath, and we could start to think that this is a little hook for the mind to jump on board, to get involved in the breath and the feeling of relaxation that comes. Anytime we start to measure the breath in that way, what we're really doing is starting to regulate the systems of the body, and starting to really feel that the mind becomes interested in kind of being home in the body. And I just want to say one word to that, because meditation really is that. It's about turning the attention of the mind home. We could say that 99.9% of the time, our energy is outwards, right? It kind of has to be, because that's where we're inspired by things in life. That's when we're walking around, locomoting, interacting. All of that is outwardly turned energy. But there's something very sweet to turning that energy inwards. My teachers would say that it's like pulling thousands of threads, like threads of silk, back here to the body. And many of us feel it resonate in the heart, the region of the brow, maybe, perhaps in the solar plexus. And as the mind is turned inwards, the senses become less attracted to things that are outside of ourselves. And so that's when we start to get to the idea of meditation then. I think one of the most commonly misunderstood aspects of meditation is that we aren't trying to stop thoughts. And perhaps you know that, and I'm not telling you anything that you're not already aware of. Thoughts will always come, they'll pass through the mind, and they can move on. What sometimes happens is they get a little stuck, and then instead of allowing the thought to arise in the mind, for us to observe it, decide whether or not we're going to deal with it now and let it go, it kind of gets stuck. And then we end up being in this loop of one thought that leads to another thought, to another, to another. And before we know it, our minds are completely drawn to the external expression. So this is a very easy addition to that breath, 1 to 5, which kind of hones the attention of the mind, to a simple meditation. And so these are just the 2 techniques that I wanted to share with you today. The first being that breath, 1 to 5, 5 to 1. And the second being this, to extend your arm, and it doesn't matter which one, right or left, and stick up your thumb so you can see that into the camera. Line that thumb up with the center of your eyebrows, really in your eye line. And I want you to keep the arm outstretched for a moment, but instead of just looking at a thumbnail, imagine there that it is a full moon shining, or a sun, or a candle flame, something that kind of inspires you, that has something to do with light. And when you're ready to, you'll simply close your eyes. And you know that the thumb is there, you know that the outstretched arm is there, but instead of the thumbnail being our point of attention, it's a beautiful full moon, or a sun, or a candle, or a star. Now, the challenge is in, can we keep that inner focus? Can we visualize that star or moon that we've stretched out in front of us? It's kind of tangible because it's your arm that's reached out. There's a distance that you've determined. And when you feel ready to, and it sounds like it should be so easy, but we'll see. When you feel ready to, you'll take your arm down. And your only job here, your only challenge really, is to try and hold that inner visual steady, keeping it directly in the place that it was before, and breathing evenly, and keeping your attention and visualizing that star or moon or sun, and not allowing it to begin to drift or dance around. I find when I practice in this way, if I'm particularly busy or overwhelmed in some way, that as I try and hold my moon steady, it starts to drift. And for me, it usually drifts downwards and towards the right. And so what I'll do then is I'll open my eyes again. I'll look at my thumb as a really tangible reference of what I'm trying to do. And I'll bring that moon back to my inner visual. And then I'll close my eyes and I'll take my hand away. And for a few minutes at a time, and I'm really talking about 3 minutes or 5, just try and hold that inner visual steady. It takes a little bit of focus, actually, and a little bit of concentration, but it's such a tangible and easy thing to do. If you're out walking, you could, I know it's going to feel a little bit strange, but you could stick your thumb out in front of your face, let the hand draw away, and keep the gaze really soft at that same kind of distance. Obviously, you're not going to close your eyes while you're walking around outside, but you can soften your gaze, and everything around in the periphery will just also soften. And there's this soft focus that you'll stay with. So I'd really like us to try this, and we'll start with just 3 minutes, okay? So I'm going to time it so that we work for exactly 3 minutes. And I do work with a meditation timer. It's quite helpful, and it gives a nice kind of neat pocket of time that I know that that's the time that I'm able to dedicate to my meditation today, okay? So for us right now, we'll just do a really sweet little 3 minutes of this practice. So let's raise our arm up, reach the thumb out. We'll do the best job that we can. Take a calm and a steady breath. And when you're ready, close your eyes and we'll begin. And then taking a slightly deeper breath in. Exhale, shrug your shoulders and let it go. And just pause. For some of you, that might have felt like an age. That was 3 minutes. For some of you, it might have gone in a little bit of a flash, and it does feel quite different at different times. I always encourage too, after a meditation, not to go straight into that analytical kind of thinking about success, failure. It was good, it was bad. I was able to find some stillness of mind. I wasn't able to find any stillness of mind. It really is just about accruing the time and practicing. It's like anything that we do regularly, it starts to give us a balance. It starts to give us something that we can start to kind of rely upon, to lean into is the term that I'll often use, that we start to accrue this experience. And through that experience, there's an outcome. And the outcome can be that you feel brighter, that you start to moderate your stress levels, which is really important and really crucial. But there's not a sense of success or failure. In yoga circles, we use this term fruitful, like you might have a fruitful practice, but that really depends on your intention too. We each set out with a different intention for reasons of wanting to meditate. And so it can be a little bit limiting to think about that was good today, that was bad today. I'm happy about that today, I'm sad about that today. And certainly there's no, we don't want to be frustrated in our practice, right? Which is commonly what causes people to stop. So those are the two things I wanted to share with you this afternoon. That simple breathing practice to kind of get us in flow of calming down, slowing down a little bit, or even if we're having a good day and a great morning, just keeping that breath regular and smooth and steady is really, really helpful to us. And then this very simple and sweet little technique, visualizing something that inspires you. Light is usually something that feels inspiring, and it's a good object for meditation, but it can be a sun, a moon, a candle, a star, anything that makes you feel uplifted and bright. So those two things might be the way in which you start. And you can see how it's 5 minutes here, it's 3 minutes there, maybe it's 3 minutes there, 8 minutes there. You can play with those two different techniques and use the one that you kind of feel helps you most. In terms of sequence, breathing first and then the meditation is always useful, but the time of that can be dependent upon what you need and how you feel. So I hope that can be helpful. We're going to open it up to any questions that you might have. Hand it back to Camille here too.
That was amazing. Like, I've always in my mind wanted to meditate, but then I forget to do it, or then I'm like, oh, how am I gonna? I'm thinking about a million different things. I don't know if it was your voice or the way you were guiding us, but like in the beginning, I was like thinking about meditating. Like I was like, okay, just breathe correctly. But then towards the end, and I got into a rhythm, I felt like just like in a good rhythm, if that makes sense. Definitely need some more practice, but they're good tips that like I think anyone can do. And I think it's like I like how you broke it down in like bite-sized pieces. Makes it more easy to kind of try. But it was really, I do feel like a sense of like clarity a little bit. So no, it was nice. Thank you. I think this will be super helpful. I'm gonna like share this with my husband as well. I think he could use this in his day. And we were practicing in the office as well. So it was it's a nice break for sure.
That's a really nice thing to bring up there, actually, is this idea of doing it with a friend, with a partner, doing it. I mean, wouldn't it be a great thing if in offices across the country, everyone said, okay, 5 minutes, let's go.
Yeah. I
Because then
mean,
it feels supported. It
that
feels like something that's really useful.
we might add that to our schedule. So awesome. I will open it up for any questions. Let me check the chat. Okay, I'll kick off the first question. So you kind of addressed this, but like for a newbie, like what would be your like when's the best time to start? Or is it really truly whatever works best for you?
In terms of time of day,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's something to be said for the very first moment when you first wake up. So people who study yoga often encourage to arise, to kind of wash their face, clean their teeth, clear the digestive system,
Yes.
and then sit down, which is where Nella comes in really well, right? To clear the digestive system, but then to sit and try to meditate first thing in the morning. If you have a schedule that you awake at the same time every day, because then you start to get into a routine of that's just how you wake up. And there's a nice way of rubbing your palms together, covering your eyes, taking a few breaths, opening to the daylight, and then beginning your practice in that way.
Yeah.
So in the morning, it can be helpful because there's less energy in the kind of the things that we start, we wake up and we start to think about the to-do
Yeah.
list.
Yep.
If you can catch yourself just before that time, it can be quite helpful. But I work a flexible schedule, different hours, so usually I don't get stuck in any one time.
Okay.
I work when I can and as I can at different pockets of time throughout the day. But if you're brand new to it, yes, if you can find those 5 minutes when you first wake up, just before demands are placed on you for the day,
Yeah.
whatever your personal circumstances are, that can be helpful.
I think that's a great idea. Definitely a good tidbit to consider. We have a question in the chat from Yessie. Aside from focus and silent meditation, can you do movement meditation? How does it work and how do you focus with all the sounds around you? Good question.
Yeah, that is a great question. There is a move towards walking meditation. That's something that is quite well known. Things like meditation with horses, where you're working with animals as well, is a really sweet thing. But it's a good question. How do you focus? In those cases, when there's movement, if you think about something like Tai Chi, where you're slowing down, you're still working the rhythm of the breath and trying to down regulate a little bit. But the way in which you stay focused, if you're in a space where there's no obstacle to your well-being, in other words, there's not a busy city street or you're dealing with lots of things like that, then it's really about the flow of breath with the intentional movement that you might be undertaking. So if you're walking, you're paying attention to the way your feet, literally the heel through the foot to the toes, touches the ground. You're thinking about the rhythm and the pace of your steps. And all of that is supported by the rhythm of your breathing. Now, if you are in a busy environment where there's a lot of stimulation in the peripheries, that kind of soft eyes idea can be really helpful.
Yeah.
It's important that you don't force your way, though, into trying to meditate in an incredibly chaotic environment, obviously, because we need to kind of keep ourselves calm, steady, but aware of our surroundings. But anytime there's movement involved, it's about the rhythm of your breath with the intentional movement that you might be undertaking. And I've heard people say to me they can meditate while they're gardening, meditate while they're cycling, just as long as we're not switching off that kind of sense of awareness of where we are, so that we're not causing potential injury to ourselves, because that would be an awful outcome,
Yes.
right? So, but that's how you do it, is you just soften the peripheral gaze a little bit, and you enhance the rhythm of your breathing with the intentional movement that you're undertaking.
Cool. Next question. How does digestion and mindfulness connect to mental health?
I think that's something that I can answer, but also, of course, you can answer too there, Camille. That with yoga, what we term a real kind of solid, healthy animal body, as we might refer to it, is having a digestive system that's strong. Ayurveda is a sister science to yoga, but without knowing anything about that, there are a lot of techniques that are about enhancing what we call the fire of digestion. It's got a word, and it's called Agni. And a lot of the breathing work we do is to stimulate digestive function, because when your digestion is functioning well, all of the other the systems in the body are firing well. And so we sleep better, we can digest our food, and we can gain energy from the food that we eat more effectively as well. But I do want to hand that one over to you as well, because obviously digestive health is really kind of the cornerstone of what we're talking about here too, in many respects.
Yeah, I mean, as kind of said it, like the health of your gut, like impacts everything around you, your mental, your physical, your well-being, how you feel. So for me, just personally as a average consumer, like when I wake up during the day, I kind of do like a sense check, like, how am I going to feel today? Like, do I feel good? Am I really tired? Am I super bloated? Because it's really going to set the tone for the rest of the day. So when I feel like light, like not in a weight sense, but just light and just like healthy, like I'm able to function better. I'm in a better mood. Like I can eat almost what I want, and I can exercise better, and just a happier person all around. So obviously keeping your gut intact and watching what you eat, taking supplements like Nella, which is our, obviously shameless plug, but it is, does help healthy gut, healthy mind and life and whatnot. So it's definitely something I definitely monitor more on a daily basis, especially as I get older and as a woman. Cool. We have time for a couple more questions. What is your best tip to clear your headspace before a meditation session?
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? It's like we need meditation before we
Yeah.
meditate, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good question, actually. Things that have helped me in the past is setting out a space for yourself. And, New York City apartments are quite small, right? So I've met people in the past who have a meditation room and they're able to change their clothes and set themselves up in such a way that everything is kind of perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If we keep waiting for perfect, we're never going to be in a place where we can practice frequently. So things like, what can you control in your environment? Can you turn off a ticking clock? Can you make sure that your phone is not going to disturb you? Can you turn the TV off or the radio or whatever else might be in your environment that you can control? If there is a tap in your apartment that drips or something that is going to kind of irk you, the things that we can control, we want to try and manage, because if you just have that leaking faucet, right, and you think, I'm going to meditate, then that's going to annoy you because it's something that you want to take care of. And if you can take care of it, it's things like that that you can control. And then the other part of that is even to think about, how are your clothes fitting you today in terms of your comfort? Are you wearing tight and restrictive clothing? Are your socks too tight? Are your shoes too tight? Little things that you can control, because anything that takes your attention from the energy of sitting quietly is going to, and it's almost going to be amplified. So I have a little system in which I will kind of consider my immediate environment as a way of just helping to prepare for my session of breath work or meditation. Clearing away the things that might be in my kind of peripheral gaze, or even that I know are directly in front of me. Making sure the sunlight is not too strong. We love the idea of meditating in the sunlight, but actually causes us to frown a little bit. And then most of the time we're just dealing with that intense heat or intense light. So long story short, I'd say consider your immediate environment. You don't have to change very much about your reality in terms of your apartment or where you live or your office, but what you can control, try and control. Turn off sounds that don't need to be on. If you've got cookies baking in the oven, just as an example, don't meditate at that time, because all you're going to be thinking about is the cookies that are cooking in your oven. I'm being a little bit silly, of course, but it's things like that, just considering the environment, because in doing that, that is a kind of ceremony or sequence towards, okay, I'm setting myself up so that I can now sit down and breathe and meditate. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, really.
Yeah, love that. And then last question from Alex, is it helpful to pair meditation with color light? And if so, is there any specific lights that specifically help with stress? Interesting.
That is a little bit out of my range of experience, but you might be touching upon the idea of chakra colors or associated colors. It depends, is the truthful answer. My teachers from the Himalayan tradition are a little bit more classical and traditional, so they might suggest that anything like color bathing or light bathing it's a little bit of a hook. It's something that we might get a little bit stuck on, and so they might encourage me to not work in that way. But what I will say, if you have a blue light usually, or a purple light that you feel good sitting in, working with, that might be something that's really, really helpful, because those colors are soothing. They're associated a little bit more with the kind of higher realms of energy in the body. So we might think spiritual centers. I don't work with light personally, but if it works for you and it's going to be something that encourages you and inspires you to sit, then I'd say full speed ahead with that. But the blues and the purples are going to feel like they support you in meditation. If you are doing a more dynamic practice, then you start to get into those kind of oranges and reds, and that's going to stimulate a little bit more of a kind of drive, to get out there and do stuff. So if you're using it for calming meditation, purples and blues would be the way to go. Yeah, thanks for that question. That's really interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah,
you have like a whole arsenal of tips now. I'm ready to go. So. This was fantastic. fantastic. Thank you so much, Victoria. Also for our, I was gonna say listeners, our joiners, we have a special code, WW Victoria 30 to get 30% off Nella, and you can start your meditation routine because Nella improves sleep quality, energy and digestion, all the things you kind of need in place before you get your meditation on. So but really excited, like thank you so much for joining us. Really great tips.